Sure, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure. I'm the founder also of ICT4Peace, and we started in 2004 to think about whether and how we could this emerging cyberspace, information society that is so beneficial to society for economic, social reasons, also to maintain it free, open, and peaceful, and how we can use it for peaceful purposes, meaning information and communication technology for peaceful purposes in humanitarian operations, in peacekeeping, UN operations, because technology can enable us to do much more, much further, much faster to help people who are in need. Right. I mean, as I mentioned, the cyberspace is a new phenomenon and has been practically unregulated. It has been created by the private sector, of course, with some government involvement, but like the real world, real life, there are no rules, there is no law, no convention. And now we feel that, of course, because with the exception maybe of cybercrime, the cyberspace is challenged by hooligans, by terrorists, and increasingly by states who use the cyberspace for strategic purposes. And that has to be regulated. And that cannot be done in one country or by a group of countries. In the end, it has to be the whole world, of course, the United Nations system, and in cooperation with the private sector and civil society to build norms, how to behave in the cyberspace, not to attack each other, to help each other, and so forth. That's why it's important. I think it has done an incredible positive work. And you mentioned these reports, 2015, I think was a really high mark and a big achievement in setting a first set of norms of state responsible behavior. And mind you, in that GG, the group of governmental experts, we have the P3 inside, the US, China, and Russia. And these are joint recommendations, and they carry value, even not legally binding, but political value. So this is a very important process. Now, you mentioned the division between the groups, because of these topics you mentioned. I'm not sure whether that's the right way to put it. But of course, what we have seen is that maybe Russia and China look more on information security, on the content that could pose a security challenge, whereas the West and the United States look more on the network security and open and free using the networks, and maybe that's where. But I think the group as such achieved a great deal. Of course, the underlying geostrategic complications that we are witnessing since a few years prevented to do more work, but a high-level work has already been achieved and hopefully will continue. I think some people have said that we have two parallel processes might be a challenge, and it could be. And that's for diplomats and talented diplomats to work out between the two processes, and I'm sure it can be found. The GGE was limited to 20 countries or 25 countries. The open-ended would include the whole world, all countries. And I think it's now time that not only a few countries have a say in determining the norms and discussing it, but the whole world, and including private sector and civil society. So I think both is necessary, it's a good thing. We just have to work hard not to compete or create confusion, but I think both processes are necessary. To be honest, I'm not a technical expert enough to pass a judgment on whether these allegations are true. But they are made by an important country, so it has to be taken seriously. I think it is also now for maybe the technical community, or maybe a system of technical labs and expertise to look at this, like the UK did to some extent, and check out the technology underlying. And we are proposing a system of trustworthy, distributed labs who look at this issue and pass judgment so that we don't rush into sanctions. Sanctions in this kind will just, not be very helpful in the long run, because you will have counter sanctions, and then we stop investments and trade and so forth. So I think we should just seriously look at the technological issues that are at hand, and then try to move on. Definitely. I mean, we are reading it every day. Citizens of our countries are using the internet, are concerned. Politicians are concerned. Of course, it's not at the highest level of priority also in this conference, but it is a very important security issue and for the well-being, for the economy. So I think there will be a coming together and push bottom-up also through parliaments, through civil society, from the private sector, that governments get their act together and finally develop these norms, because we cannot live in a lawless, ruleless space. It has to be solved one way or the other. So I'm quite confident that we're getting there, but it will be still a lot of work.